Why did Voldemort choose Nagini as a Horcrux? Out of all the objects in the wizarding world, ancient artifacts, powerful relics, items soaked in history, why would the Dark Lord tie a piece of his soul to a living creature? And not just any creature, but a snake that could think, feel, and act on her own. Was it strategy? Was it arrogance? Or was Nagini something far more important to Voldemort than he ever let on? Because when you look closely at the books, this decision tells us more about Voldemort's mind than almost any other Horcrux he created. If you enjoy videos like this, deep dives into Harry Potter characters, hidden motivations, and the psychology behind the magic, then this is the channel for you. There should be a subscribe button somewhere on your screen. If that's your thing, tap it now, and let's dive in. Now, to understand why Voldemort chose Nagini, we have to start with one simple truth. Voldemort didn't see Horcruxes the way everyone else did. To most dark wizards, a Horcrux was meant to be hidden, buried, forgotten, something inert, an object that couldn't betray you, question you, or act on its own. But Voldemort wasn't most dark wizards. Voldemort believed he was above the rules of magic, and more importantly, above the limitations of ordinary thinking. And that's where Nagini comes in. By the time Voldemort makes Nagini a Horcrux, he's already fractured his soul multiple times. His understanding of what a self even is already broken. So the idea of placing part of himself into a living being doesn't feel risky to him. It feels appropriate. Nagini isn't just a container, she's an extension. What I find really interesting is that Nagini isn't treated like an object in the books. Voldemort talks to her, he confides in her, he relies on her. When he's at his weakest, hiding, rebuilding, barely clinging to existence, Nagini is always there. In my opinion, that's not accidental. Nagini represents something Voldemort lacks and desperately needs: loyalty without judgment. She doesn't question him, she doesn't hesitate, she doesn't fear him. And unlike Death Eaters, who betray, doubt, or fail, Nagini never does. That makes her unique. But there's another layer here, and this is where it gets darker. Voldemort has a deep obsession with symbolism. Every Horcrux he chooses means something to him. The diary represents his past. The ring represents his lineage. The locket represents ambition. The cup represents status. The diadem represents intellect. So what does Nagini represent? Control over death. Snakes are tied to ancient magic, rebirth, and immortality. They shed their skin. They survive. They endure. And Voldemort, who fears death above all else, sees himself in that symbolism. In other words, Nagini isn't just protecting his soul. She is how Voldemort sees himself. Now, there's also a practical reason, and I think this one often gets overlooked. Nagini is mobile. She can be moved, hidden, guarded, used as a weapon. Unlike a cup or a locket, she can defend herself, and be defended by Voldemort at all times. But here's the fatal flaw. Because Nagini is alive, she can also be targeted. And this is where Voldemort's arrogance costs him everything. If you're enjoying this so far, do give the video a like. It really helps me keep making these and dive even deeper into the darker corners of Harry Potter lore. There's also one more unsettling detail we have to talk about. Nagini isn't just a snake. As we later learn, she was once human. That changes everything, because it means Voldemort didn't just place part of his soul into an animal. He placed it into a being that used to be a person. In my opinion, this is the clearest proof that Voldemort had completely lost any understanding of what a soul should be. To him, a soul isn't sacred, it isn't personal, it isn't human. It's a resource. And Nagini becomes the final proof of that belief. But this decision also seals his fate, because by tying his soul to something living, thinking, and visible, Voldemort makes a mistake he never makes with his other Horcruxes. He lets his emotions get involved. He protects Nagini obsessively. He keeps her close. He reacts emotionally when she's threatened. And that emotional attachment creates vulnerability. So when Nagini is finally destroyed, Voldemort doesn't just lose a Horcrux, he loses control. And that loss is what leaves his soul exposed in the final moments. So why did Voldemort choose Nagini as a Horcrux? In my view, it comes down to three things. He trusted her more than anyone else. He saw himself reflected in her symbolism. And he believed he was clever enough to break the rules of Horcrux creation without consequences. And in the end, that belief is exactly what leads to his downfall.